you want to get early access to all of our daily videos, please consider joining our Patreon. I'll put a link below. Here it is on the screen. Again, you get early access to all the daily videos, ad-free, early, before anyone else gets to see them. Have at it. And you can help support the channel. How we doing, vetters? Bam. I think I made a mistake, y'all, by not creating this live stream today. I made it a couple days ago, and I think people just don't know about it, even though I tried sharing it. It's not the same. So we'll see what kind of turnout there is today, y'all. I don't know. Replay may be better, because this is the least amount of people I've ever seen on a live stream before. Yeah, exactly. I think people just don't know about it, so we're just gonna wait and see here. I see your comments, Daniel. Yeah, exactly. I thought planning ahead and having the live stream, the link ready for a couple days would help, but it doesn't. I regret doing that. I should have done that this morning. So no worries. Hey, I don't care. I would do this live stream for one better, because when I started, this is what my live streams were like. It takes me back here a little bit. I gotta check a couple things here. All right, cool. And yeah, Dr. Dan will be joining here in just a moment, and we'll get this going. We are going to talk psionics today with Dr. Dan, who I've had on a couple times. I think most recently he just did an interview on Night Shift podcast with Clint. So if you haven't seen seen that yet, go check it out. Daniel is saying we reached a year on our Discord. Oh, did we? Okay. Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to Vetted, our 1 year anniversary of Discord. How many members we got? I don't know. I like 1,400 or something. 1,400, which is 1,399 more people than I thought would sign up. So I'm happy. Yeah, 1,400. Hell yeah. All right, 1 year anniversary. Well, shout out to Daniel right here, y'all. This is the man who put the Discord together. So if you like the Discord, you can thank me. But if you hate it, blame this guy right here, Daniel. Okay, let's see this. Blame him. No, I'm kidding. No, Daniel is responsible for all of it, man, for making it what it is. So shout out to Daniel, man. Happy birthday to you, brother. On the Discord. Yeah, a lot of open mics. A lot of great conversations in the Discord that I wouldn't have had otherwise, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like, the Discord has been quintessential for real conversations about this topic. You know, better than Twitter Spaces, better than so much. I think some of the best conversations that maybe that been had about the topic are happening in our Discord. So if you haven't already, join. It's free. Show. And yeah, you know what? While I wait for Dan to show up, I am going to issue a correction. Yesterday, I put up a video about JFK that got quite a bit of attention. And I showed a document that was written by John F. Kennedy asking about UFO stuff or whatever to the CIA. Turns out that document may not have the provenance I thought it did. And I didn't mention any of that in the video, so I want to issue a correction. I don't know how real that document is. It can't be proven real or one way or the other. And some people lit me up on Twitter. So anyway, there's the correction. And yeah, people thought it was part of the JFK dump release, even though I didn't say that. that's what people thought. Another document I showed in the video was from it. So I showed 2 documents. The second one was, and I did mention that, but, and I can see how people assumed that. So my apologies. That was not my intent. Yeah, exactly, Marcus. Yeah, the CIA UFO letter. Yeah, exactly. So look, yeah, as Dr. Dan gets prepared to come in, I hope he's coming. You know what, let me check my email. Oh yeah, we're good. Okay, sweet. All right, Dr. Dan saying he's having microphone and camera issues. Been there. I get it. So he'll be with us in just a moment. You know, it's funny. I feel so much pressure on these live streams that I don't on my regular videos. You know, I feel so much pressure. I feel so much pressure to like perform, like it's live. Go going, Patrick. Do your dance, sing, dance. You know, I'm like a monkey out here. I don't know why I feel that pressure. I just feel like I need to fill the space at all times. You know, one of those type of things. Just like this nervous anxiety of like, okay, fill the space. We can't have dead air. We gotta be doing something. I don't know why I do that. Yeah, let's just go over some of these comments here till Dr. Dan gets here. He's coming. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna help him with the link real quick, y'all. Y'all seeing how this works in real time. Oh wait. Boom. Boom. I'm gonna send him a link. Okay, now he's coming. Yeah, let's start thinking about psionics, y'all. What is psionic? When you hear the term, what do you think? I've got a few things we're gonna look over, and to be honest, I'm seeing a few things that alarm me. Let's just put it that way. I'm seeing some things that alarm me about that term. Now, that doesn't mean we'll get into it. That doesn't mean anything bad, but it could. Because just because someone is attaching themselves to the term doesn't mean that the term or what it's about is bad. Does that make sense? Right? So it could be fine. All right, Dan, I got you here, brother. Let's see here.
I'm just gonna put in my background because otherwise you have to see this green screen.
Honestly, it doesn't look too bad. It looks like a slick green screen.
You know what? I might as well just take it down actually. It's a cut behind me.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad. It looks good.
All right, I'll take it.
It looks good. That's why I get blue screens. That way it's like, because it works the same. Blue screen, green screen. How you doing, Dan? How you doing, brother?
I'm well. I just got back from a travel trip in DC and just flew in from the airport right now.
Oh man, look at you, Mr. Busy. I like it. Anything exciting in DC or just work?
Just work, but it's I travel a lot, you know, and I go to Marriott's because I'm a member of this Bonvoy, you know, program where I get points. And the first thing I do in there, I get in the room, get the remote control, go to YouTube, put in vetted, and watch my daily fix, you know.
I love it. I love it. I'm being watched in Marriott's. That's what I like.
Yeah.
They need to add me to the required viewing on Marriott's.
Well, I remember 2 months ago it was, I'd put in vetted and something else would come up, and now it's just right, at the top. So
Hell yeah.
I ain't the only one.
I like it. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think on my analytics on the channel, I can see what people search to find our videos essentially. And vetted podcasts are the top search terms. There's a bunch below it, but those are
Cool.
So people are specifically going to find vetted, which is great.
Nice.
Yeah, man, we're just getting started. We're just hanging out here. Nothing crazy. I think I made a mistake on this, so I don't know how many viewers we're gonna get today. I shouldn't have created the link for this so early, like a few days in advance, like schedule. I should have done it today. Does that make sense? Because then it's on people's notifications right away, and I think it gets lost. And hey, lesson learned.
Yeah, well, it's content. We people see it later.
People will see it later. Yeah, for sure. We'll get some replay here. I got one super chat. I'm just gonna throw it up real quick here. Legend, vetted rocks. Everyone in chat is awesome. Feel like we're in the Lego movie. What's that song? Everything is awesome.
Don't know that one, but...
Oh, you don't know? I don't know. It's some Lego movie. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, man. So today I thought we would talk about just this new term floating around, right? This new idea, this new I don't really know what to call it, just because what is it exactly that, when people say psionics, what do they mean? Do they all mean the same thing? What does it include? How does it make people feel? How does it fit into the UFO community? What impact, good or bad, does it have? What impact will it have for the future, right? Moving forward, right? What is this now an essential part of the UFO community, or will it remain on the fringes, kind of like it always has? So yeah, I just thought we'd kind of dive in. But let me just ask you just straight, just raw question, right? Like, you hear the term psionics, like, how do you feel, or what does that make you think about? Or
I believe that people have a psychic ability. What we call it doesn't matter much. I think it's a cool term. I think it's maybe rebranding, like we rebranded UAP or UFO. So I like the term. I believe in the phenomenon. I'm interested about why the UFO community is very interested in it, because they are different things. There's a few things that link it, right? Aliens, let's say, typically communicate, via telepathic means. But that's something to talk about, is sort of why the interest. Maybe people are interested in the UFO phenomenon as a part of a broader phenomenon of the unknown, the unexplained. I know I am, so I'm assuming others are too.
Yeah. So when you hear psionics, you think psychic abilities, essentially. And when you say psychic abilities, what do you mean by that exactly? Do you just mean mind to mind, or is there more to it?
It's probably more to it, but the way I've in my nascent stage of understanding is the ability to know things that certainly read minds, or to be at a high level of consciousness that can predict things, maybe induce situations. It's just a higher plane of intuition that can look kind of magical, but I think there's something real to it. And I've actually felt that long before I had any encounter. I met with a psychic in 2009. I was, it's probably too much information here, but I was going through a tough relationship and potentially a divorce, and it ended up being a divorce, and the best thing for me and for my ex-wife. But I went to one and was very skeptical going in. I was desperate, and they didn't know my name. Well, they knew my first name, but she knew stuff that it was impossible to research, that no one knew. And I remember the first 3-4 minutes, she was giving me information, and some of it was feelings, like how I'm feeling, but a lot of it was facts that no one knows except me. And that's when I believed it right away, because no magician, no one, there's no, I don't think there's any trick involved in that. And she's very well known. It was probably the most expensive hour of my life with a professional. But it was, I don't know, did it help me in that? I think it made me be open to an outside force, that there's something maybe higher that's taking care of me, that maybe I don't have to worry so much. That I needed something maybe mystical or magical in my life at that time. And that's what it provided me. And confirmation that this shit's real.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's interesting. You said something there that was quite interesting, which is you asked, how did it help me? Right. And I think that's really a great question to ask. It's like, okay, let's say it's real. Well, how does it help? How does it help to go to someone who knows things about you haven't told them? Right. How does that help your life? Right. If they're like, they reveal secrets about you that you don't know, it's like, okay, well, how does that help me, live my life? But you kind of explain, just knowing that there's some other force makes you think about your life differently. Therefore, boom, 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 you start thinking about it differently, which is interesting in
Yeah,
and
I
of
think when
itself.
you're going through something traumatic, you have feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, and a lot of fear and depression. And when you experience that, it is a spiritual experience and can create insight and even an awakening. So while it's not directly related to, it wasn't like this person said, you should do this and not do that. I was expecting that. Like, give me
Yeah.
advice. And I was almost going in like seeing a counselor who had some potential ability to see the future and inform the decisions I was going to make. But no, really what I came with it is almost I don't have to worry so much. There's something or someone that has a plan, and it ended up being true, not because of anything she said, but in the sense of that relationship was a stepping stone to another one, and that without that relationship I wouldn't have found the new one and my current wife. And it was the biggest anxiety reduction experience I've had, I'd say, in a
Well,
short
that's an
period of time.
interesting way. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. Anxiety reduction experience. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, which is interesting, just considering your background, that you wouldn't go to, you know, a psychologist or so, you know what I mean? Someone
Mhm.
like I don't know, a friend, or you get a referral or something. Hey, I need to talk about this.
Yeah.
What made you go to the psychic? Was it just last? I don't know why the psychic exactly.
hmm Yeah, and I did go to those other folks. I went to friends and therapists, as one typically does in those situations. But
Yeah.
it was, so my ex-wife had seen the person and was talking about it for years, and
Uh,
she encouraged it. And then randomly, I was at a doctor's appointment in Connecticut, and this person is located in Colorado. And I met this person in Connecticut who was a physician, very grounded kind of guy, and he told me about her, and he said it's the real deal. Like, and someone I kind of trust, I'd known for 10 years.
sure.
And I became curious too. When you're in a vulnerable state, you're more open to just, I don't know, more spiritual things or things outside of your normal everyday way of thinking.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, it was. I would say it was a religious experience, but it was, I didn't stop thinking about the phenomenon at all at that point. But it kind of made sense when I think about it. Like, I know the power of intention, mood, attitude on human behavior, how it impacts people. I've always had a very strong intuition about other people's emotions. I feel them. I just met a client, several clients in the DC area, and I feel the emotion that they are experiencing before I go in. Now, that's not psychic ability. That's just, I think I'm just emotionally attuned to my environment and to the people in it, especially if there's people that are hurting and find it hard to communicate that pain.
Yeah. No, well said. Look, I think, maybe I should have started with this. And you know, if it's okay with you, if you could give just a little bit of like your background, like what your day job is, just for people that like who is Dr. Dan? Like what's he doing here? You know, who is he?
Yeah,
What's he talking
sure.
about? Why is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I'm not really a known person in the UAP world. I am active on X, and that's really kind of sort of how my public sort of experience began. My handle is Anxiety Whisperer, which I think I was using it as a way to promote some of my programs and my practice. That's why I still have that name. But no, I have a PhD in clinical psychology with a specialization in child, adolescent, young adult treatment. I developed an expertise in anxiety disorders and OCD. So about 10 years ago, OCD was an anxiety disorder, PTSD was an anxiety disorder. And then about 5 years ago, they actually, in the DSM, it's a diagnostical statistical manual that therapists use and psychiatrists use, they separated them, but they're all very connected because they're all related to perceived or real threat and how the body responds to that threat. They're all linked to fear and the pursuit of stability and emotional regulation. And I just I love working with anxiety disorders for a couple of reasons. One, they're very treatable with the right interventions and the right methods. Two, the biggest one, and I'm very public about this, is that I had very severe anxiety when I was a teenager. And I should say that anxiety is very different than an anxiety disorder. And it's actually kind of the origin of some of the stigma. So it's kind of like comparing, someone having a glass of wine, having a drink, an alcoholic drink, and an alcoholic. They're two very
Okay.
different things.
I see.
So an anxiety disorder is marked by symptoms of anxiety that are frequent, intensive, intrusive. They impact social life, work life, school life, whatever. So it's marked by, frequency, intensity of symptoms, and the impact of those. And they're severe. Like one's worlds become small, and
Sure.
you're basically at the bequest of the dictator of fear. And that's an anxiety disorder, very sort of generally described. So that's what I do. I assess and treat, but more on the acute end. So someone's not going to come to me because they've got some daily fears. They're going to work or school, but they're just struggling with stress and anxiety. That's not who I would work with. It's more, I can't leave my house, or I can for a few things, or I'm washing my hands 20 times a day, or I'm having PTSD flashbacks from being, from a physical assault, sexual assault, from a combat experience. So that's the work I do daily and I love to do. And I travel around the country working with kind of acute cases that are really stuck that people haven't been able to figure out. And that's kind of what I'm known for. So I do kind of consulting intervention for severe anxiety. That's what I do.
Wow. Oh,
Okay.
that's you're doing God's work, as they say here in Texas.
Thanks. All right,
That's
I'll take that.
amazing. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're helping
I love
people
it.
like with some of their, I like the way you said that, right? It's like one, you know, you live the life of anxiety, and the other is just you experience in brief moments here and there. Like everyone has that, right? Like
Yeah.
brief little moments of anxiety, but some people it's becomes their life. I can't imagine because I know what anxiety is like, and it's a you know what it is? It's a confusing emotion to have. It's confusing because you're not sure what to do. Things are off, and you're just kind of, and then that feeling in and of itself fuels it more, which makes it worse, right? Which is like then it just starts to go downhill, and yeah, I can definitely see how it can get become a runaway train essentially in your life. So yeah, no, yeah, that's great work. Have you personally, because going to see that psychic in 2009 helped you, have you ever personally recommended to someone professionally to go see a psychic to help them with
No,
their anxiety?
no, and I wouldn't do that really for sort of almost ethical best practice grounds. My work is very empirically based, grounded in the research.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no, the type of training I had for a year or two was what we call like Gestalt experiential psychodrama that was the kind of the wackiest the treatment that I got to, where it's sort of it's experiential, right? And you're not just working with a manual and using cognitive behavioral therapy. You might be delving deep into emotions and doing empty chair techniques, which is like you're going into a chair and you're playing the role of maybe your dad or some other. We used to call that kind of hippie shit, but it was really kind of effective and in that, you know, a lot of like pathology, I'll call it, or paralysis in life is caused by unexpressed emotion, unprocessed grief and trauma. And for some, everyone has their own ways to kind of work through that. And so I would try to creatively create a foundational platform to make them feel comfortable to, you know, communicate what their fears were. And then that gives me a pathway to develop their insight, identify their fears, and then deliberately face those fears to deliberately induce their anxiety, which is how you treat severe anxiety, is you teach them how to increase it, not decrease it.
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. It's
Yeah.
like like the Hulk, like leaning into it, right? Where he's like,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
angry all the time. Like that's how I deal with it. And I can
Mhm.
control it that way. That's interesting.
Yeah,
It,
desensitization kind of process.
yeah, no, that makes sense. Honestly, you know, as you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, all right, let's assume, you know, you don't necessarily include this in your work, right? This sort of phenomena. But let's say it reaches a point scientifically where it's kind of accepted, hey, humans can have this sort of psionic ability, right? Telepathic or this or that. Would you then use it to potentially, like, how would that help you as a therapist to be able to read the mind of your patient and vice versa? They can read
Mhm.
your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it's going to go to that global scale. I mean, it's possible, but what I am focused on is developing the ability to read through, understand communication, verbal communication, nonverbal communication, how to identify defense mechanisms, which is, you know, sort of, there's many very cool defense mechanisms that are so accurate to the human experience, but you know, ways we portray ourselves that isn't
Yeah,
the reality. We're reflecting, we're defending, and we're just reacting to protect ourselves, right? And so knowing when someone's doing that and then coaching them how to work through those defense mechanisms can just improve self-esteem, improve interpersonal relationships. It's great for couples work. So that's the extent. So developing, I would say, intention, attention, attunement, and really emotional awareness of the self and the other is really what it is.
yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, I just think like, okay, if some of these, you know, what used to be considered parlor tricks become reality, right? Where it turns out, oh, there's something to this, right? This
Mhm.
telepathy or telekinesis or right, all these different functions, the power of the mind. How can that then be implemented into treatments for people or vice versa? Kind of like what they've done with, you know, what is it, like LSD and mushrooms and stuff, you know, psilocybin. They've taken micro dose and used it to help treat people for depression or maybe even anxiety. I can't remember exactly what that kind of stuff is used for, right? In small amounts in a controlled setting. You know, it makes me wonder if this kind of thing turns out to be true. Could it then be used to help people? You know,
Yeah.
some of these abilities.
I mean, any good provider is going to be always open to new methods, but it's got to be supported by evidence
Sure.
and you know,
Yeah.
quantitative research, peer-reviewed journals.
Yeah.
You know, we are scholar practitioners and we base our interventions what's based on what's proven and demonstrated. That being said, one can still be creative and if someone comes to me and they've found a strategy that works for them, I'm going to absolutely endorse that, assuming it's healthy
Sure.
but yeah, I think it's important to be open-minded, but also stay grounded in using what's proven to work, because they're paying you to help them and reduce their symptoms. So you don't want to just be sitting there and using strategies that aren't proven. be effective.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. 100%. It's a journey to have it implemented, right? For it to really come together, it will be slow, kind of coming in, and there'll be some therapist in Germany somewhere who tries it first, and then that may work, and it kind of moves along.
And there are more holistic healers and other
Sure.
practitioners that I will refer to, whether it's more meditation focused or Reiki or yoga, and I mean there's the more traditional ones, and there might be even more sort of out there esoteric kind of new methods. And I'm always open to working with a number of different providers and searching for some ways to complement the work that I'm doing or the work they're doing. The key is not working in isolation. The key is not being closed to other ideas, but really using what's proven to work and or what works for your client.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, to some extent, I don't know if this is the right term to use, but the placebo effect, like if someone thinks something's work and it works on them, what does it matter if at the end of the day it worked? I mean, isn't the solution, or isn't the result the most important thing? I mean, definitely how you get there to some extent, for sure. I don't mean violating certain, human ethics. But I don't know, there's particular system or whatever, like you said, that's maybe a little whatever, but that person just feels it's working on that, and it centers them and it clears them and it works for them. At the end of the day, doesn't matter.
And that's a great point. There's some limits to that, but I'm not going to recommend someone take Vicodin once a day for depression, despite the amazing outcome it might have.
Yeah.
But certainly, like every medication has a placebo effect. I mean, when I tell someone that, hey, this medication's going to have between a 30 and 70% impact, and you're probably going to start experiencing this in 7 to 12 days. If it happens sooner, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Now the research, it's not lying. There's research to support those timelines, but it's how you communicate it. It's the intention, the emotional presence that you bring in that moment. It's going to have I would say at least a 20% effect on actual reduction of symptoms.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. See, that's interesting. Just based on your work, what you've done, who you've treated, whatever, using that as a filter, how do you see, these powers or whatever psionics, like implementing into the world and affecting society and cultures? And, how do you see it just affecting, the human psyche, I guess? I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It does. I honestly haven't really thought about it. I've only been thinking about it in regards to the phenomenon, and
Sure.
Can we communicate with the phenomenon? Can we bring UAPs into existence? Is that our method of communications? That's the scope of which I've been thinking about it. And one's got to be wary. Another reason I don't refer to psychics, because 90% of them are going to be fraudulent. And I don't know the percentage, but let's say a vast majority. And I'm not saying all those 90% know that, maybe half of them don't. They really have good intentions and they're trying to tap into something. And then there's some that absolutely, it's extortion. So it's just being really deeply careful about that. But how could it help more globally and in other areas? I think that's a great question. I mean, if we can really truly read minds and see into the future, to be honest, I see more potential dangers and risks with that. There's also an evolutionary reason or a God-given reason why we don't have that full of power and ability. Secrets are important, and not knowing the future is important. If we knew the future, we could be paralyzed. We could commit suicide. We could that's one thing people are terrified sometimes seeing a psychic. It's like, I don't want to know what they're going to tell me.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. I mean, yeah. Visually, I imagine it like opening every border in the world. Right? Yeah. Mentally, we open every border. with this is real. We just every border is opened and it's just a free for all. And imagine if that happened physically, globally, right? Every country was like open borders, boom. I mean, I don't know if that would be good. Like you said, secrets are there's something to limits. There's
Yeah,
something
maybe
to be said
privacy.
to
I would say
or
instead of
privacy.
secrets.
Yeah, no, yeah. Totally. People are going to take that the wrong way. Somebody's already clipping that for sure. Uh, yeah,
What's he hiding?
yeah. What's he hiding? No, I understood what you meant. And I agree. I totally agree. I think there's limits. I think there's something to not knowing what's around the corner. And if we knew, well, clearly you're going to prepare. I mean, how can you not know, right? If someone told you the exact time and day you're going to die, I don't see how that doesn't affect you. Maybe not every single person that's told that, but the majority, there's gonna be some sort of visceral effect, good or bad, and on a spectrum, of course.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
you
that's the
change the
topic I
way you live your
spoke of
life,
with
right?
on Night Shift. I was talking about this consciousness evolutionary theory that's still in development, but a part of that theory, beyond that, I believe consciousness kind of continues to ebb forever because in your lifetime, every emotion, every experience, the almost infinite amount of experiences that you've had is data. It's very important data, and it doesn't make sense that it would be just lost at death. There's if evolution is about adaptation and survival, it's going to continue. It has to continue. That the collective data of everyone in the world who's ever lived, that data is too valuable to delete, in my opinion.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, let's jump into that. Let's just take a left turn here.
Mhm.
Consciousness and um
And I'll
so
actually
you
say the second half of the theory, because it's related to what you
yeah,
said
yeah,
just
yeah.
before. The second half of it is there seems to be a deliberate by a creator, by whoever, or something just evolved, that there's a sweet spot of not knowing when you're going to die, but also knowing you're going to die. The fact that we know we're going to die has huge value to provide
Sure.
motivation and ambition, and the human race has created unbelievably incredible things, pyramids, however many thousands of years ago, because we knew our life was finite. If we were immortal, I believe that either there would be mass suicides, or we would have to deal with the unbearable, uh, reality that it would never end. And I speak to it in that podcast, talking about sort of the Bill Murray movie. Groundhog
Groundhog
Day.
Day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
where every day he's like he can't kill himself, and he's just like trying. And
Yeah.
so but it's finding a sweet spot. So it's sort of okay, the value of death, but also not knowing when it happens provides some motivational value. But then also having some belief, but not full belief, that there could be something after. That's very important too. So it's finding this zone of optimal philosophical belief in that area where we have faith that there's something after, because it could also be very depressing. We could be paralyzed by that too, but it's not certain. Like, we don't know fully, and so there's value in believing, but there's value in not knowing as well.
Oh, that's great. That's interesting for sure. Yeah, because we definitely try to it's like most people in life want to know one way or the other, right? Is it real or not? Like there is no in between. There is no what you just said, which seems more balanced. Like that's okay. You think this may be possible, but you're not certain. So you're still balancing your life in a way that it could not be true, but also true. So maybe you take some risks that normally you wouldn't, but at the same time, you're a little more reserved in other areas, just in case. Yeah, I mean, it's such life is such an individual journey that we all take together as a group. So there's both existing, and it's a tough choice. It's a tough choice to make. What decisions? I mean, we all make decisions based on information. So you could argue, well, the more informed we are, right, we'll make a better decision. But maybe there's some things best left uninformed. I
Yeah,
don't know if that makes sense.
that's you. Yeah, encapsulated right there. Yeah, we want to feel in control. We need information to feel in control and predict and prepare for the future as best as possible. But we can't know the big questions. Like maybe we can to some extent, but not fully. I think. I mean, maybe that's just another thing that we could evolve to know and learn to know and learn to cope with
and be okay with it. Yeah, that's a great point.
Kind of
Honestly,
like the phenomenon.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say. Let's, jump into that a little bit. So this idea that, right, the ontological shock, if the world finds out, it just won't be the same. We'll go down in, flames. Is that true? What can humanity, I think a human on its own is capable, of a lot more than humanity as a whole. That makes sense. In the sense that, you know, humanity is requiring a lot of different personalities and cultures and thoughts and, right, beliefs coming together to try to balance out into something that pushes forward. Whereas a human, maybe whatever, just depending on who they are, can get through more or less, right? We're not all the best Olympic athletes in the world. There's only a few, right? Like that. So clearly humans on their own can do maybe more than humanity can. So maybe there's lots of people who would be fine with it, but as a whole, we just wouldn't survive that knowledge of knowing. But then again, you go, well, should we suppress it too? That if this phenomena is real, is suppressing it? Is that the reason they're not letting it out?
I was, believe it or not, thinking about this on the plane because I was thinking about ontological shock. No joke, on the plane, and because I initially thought that the majority of the world either wouldn't be able to handle it, would deny it, whatever the evidence. It would really disrupt, the faith of 50 million evangelical Christians and X number of Muslims, and it's a big shift. But then I was thinking it really would depend on what the information is. Is it just, all right, NHI exists and they visited planet Earth? I think we could all handle that.
Yeah.
Is it they've been controlling or pulling the strings, or do they have some intention to harm us? I mean, there's hundreds of different scenarios. So it's kind of like we don't really talk about those specifics. When we hear of Lazander or any of the people talk about disclosure and being ready, and it's going to be an adjustment, and eventually we'll just get back to go to work and doing being with our families, because our life is finite, and we're going to hold on to those things that are tangible and important. But yeah, it's just in reference to, right, it exists, maybe it's visited or it has visited.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I agree.
And if they said, hey, we've been genetically engineering you, and you 500,000 people are half alien from this star system, and this, but not you, and we chose to abduct you versus you. I'm like, I wasn't abducted. What's up? I mean, you could become.
It's a good point. I agree. I actually 100% agree. I've always said it's about disruption. How disruptive is that information in our life? Just like you said, if we just find out, there's life out there, they've come a few times, whatever, or no, they're abducting people on a daily and watch the skies and watch your back, and they're doing this, and that becomes way more disruptive, right? So it's all about disruption. I completely agree. Real quick, I just want to say to the chat, thank you to everyone that's watching. Put in your super chats. I see some super chats that have gone in. We'll get to them at the end here of the stream. We'll just go through them all. So I promise we're going to get to your questions, chat. So yeah, I think, we're fighting so much to get the truth, but we don't. Are we thinking enough about what that truth will do? Right? Like we're so like the dog chasing a car. Well, what's he going to do when he catches up to the car? Bite the tire?
Right.
I mean, like what is the goal?
And is that the reason the US government is not disclosing it? Because it's not I always think, and I probably still do, that they're never going to disclose because they're not going to disclose a power that's more greater, an entity that's more powerful than themselves. That's just not.
That's interesting.
It's not
Yeah.
wise. It's not to manage, 600 million people. You're never going to take that risk. And there's value in the control and power in the control of controlling information.
Sure.
But is there a small percentage chance that they're not telling us because it is terrifying? And I saw this little clip of Donald Trump. I think it was Donald Trump talking to a judge, and I did post it, or a judge recounting his conversation with Trump, and the judge said, hey, you promised you'd release the JFK files, and Trump said, you know why I didn't? This is more in the last term, because if you know what I know, you'd be shocked or horrified. It was something like he had a reason. Now, maybe that was sort of made up, or, who knows? If the government's going to release files, they're going to release what they feel comfortable us seeing.
Absolutely.
There's never going to be some full file dump. Although I thought the ones they released, and the one especially linked to UFOs, was pretty cool if they're real. I think they are real. Did you think they were real?
Which one?
Like the two?
One?
Well, I guess the first one that you talked about in your show yesterday.
With JFK, yeah. I actually had to issue a correction at the beginning of the live stream about that. So okay. I got a lot of pushback yesterday.
What was the correction?
Basically, that I'm not sure of the provenance of that document. I don't know entirely if that's real or not.
Yeah, I got that too. Because I posted something on it, and I think it was Grant Levac, or I think that's his name.
Yeah, he posted on mine too. There's definitely a lot of sheriffs out there in the UFO community who have self-deputized themselves that feel the need to go around and tell people, you effed up.
Yeah, I know. And, it's like, tell me about the provenance. You go and find out the provenance.
Yeah, Grant I like a lot, actually.
I love him too, but yeah.
He's the only one that came to me respectfully about it. Hey man, everyone else was like, I hate the standing on a soapbox and looking down on you and telling you screwed up, you suck, you didn't do the work, I do the work. It's like, whoa, calm down, calm down. It's a quick little tangent, but I made a post yesterday on Twitter that I still strongly stand behind. I feel like people have learned a far inferior way to communicate through social media, Twitter, the internet, because I think a lot of these people would never say these things normally, but because just like something about it has made them just forget that there's a real person on the other end of that account. And it's really
anonymity will do that, right? Because often,
absolutely,
not always,
or no anonymity. Sometimes people that aren't, they're who they are, and they're just out there. They were talked to that way on Twitter, so they think, oh, this is how you talk on Twitter, so this is how I'm going to be, and they forget, hey, man, we're real people. What happened to us? What happened to us that we can't just talk to each other and come after each other, and there has to be some sort of ulterior motive why this person posted this thing and they're an evil person. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so lost with it. I just think to myself, which is why I'm not on Twitter. I mean, if you know, I'm not on there very much at all. I post my videos, I'm out. I hardly ever comment.
I think you probably spend 20 minutes a day on it.
Barely, if that. I just, for me, if Twitter went away, my life continues. My life isn't hanging on Twitter. I don't really, I'm not going to make decisions based off what some random stranger on Twitter commented and told me to do. It's like, why would I do? I mean, what are you expecting?
You're human, and we're all human, and we're going to be impacted by it. Even if we say this piece person means nothing, I don't care. We all do.
It still does. Yeah, exactly. It still means exactly. Which is why I stay off it. I'm not built for it, man. I come from a different time, like yourself, like before the internet, and I guess I'll never get used to it. I'll never understand it or get used to it.
And most of these people wouldn't say what they say in person. If they were
of course
there in
not.
person, it's
of course
distance
not.
And anonymity, but mostly distance.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just becomes everyone's no one cares about how the message is delivered. They just care about the message. And I'm just not a fan of that. I think that the delivery of a message is also important, right? Like, in fact, I would argue it's more important to some extent, a father giving a message to his child, if he beats it into him or he sits him down and explains it to him, but the same message, right? The same lesson he wants him to learn. So I think the delivery of the message matters. But regardless, with psionics and everything that sort of popped out about this recently, right? There's all this sort of attention that this term and everything around it is getting that it normally hasn't, right? You had the telepathy tapes come out over the holidays that took off, became the #1 podcast over Joe Rogan in January in the world,
Oh, wow.
right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it made quite an impact. And psionics, telepathy, all of these things are just spreading like wildfire, and people are open to it, and trying to do demonstrations. You got just people getting more involved with it. There was a study that came out of Canada that I covered in the Daily Mail about humans can read minds. It's called the psi inhibitor, something dormant in us that has stopped that ability. But if you mess with it a little bit, it kind of opens it up. I don't know, right? These things.
Well, that makes me think that there's probably like some safe zone of approximate like psychic ability where we're never going to develop at a level where I can hear or know everything that you're thinking, but I can be more perceptive and aware. So it goes beyond intuition and being emotionally aware into this realm of not sensing how you feel, but maybe knowing how you feel. And based on knowing how you feel, that's an opportunity for me to help you faster, maybe.
Sure.
Or but would there someday have to be limits on that? Like you said, all the borders coming down, and suddenly, well, like everyone in Russia can read our minds and our plans. And I don't think it's ever going to come to that. I really think we're going to find that there's a small percentage of the world population that, whether it's due to a mutation or something that's developed, I believe it can be developed too, that a small percentage have the ability to do that, and hopefully it's used to enrich their lives or mostly enrich the lives of other people. That's my hope.
Look, I want to get into great point, by the way, you just made, and I agree. I want to get into the part of psionics that deals with quote unquote communicating with the others, right? The ETs, craft or whatever, the idea is. But I'm going to play a video real quick that honestly has me worried, if I'm being honest, and I'll explain why. Okay, yeah. It's only 5 minutes, and we can stop it. Let's see here. So, all right, let me set this up a little bit here. Okay, so there's a guy named Randy Kramer, and he's going to talk about psionics here. And this is what worries me, because Randy Kramer is one of these. Have you ever heard of the 20 and Back program that's in the UFO community? The lore of that?
I heard about it, but I don't know what it is.
Essentially, quickly, it's basically the idea that there were these super soldiers created to go serve 20 years on Mars and come back, right? 20 and back. That's what that's the idea. And you serve on some like crazy big spaceship that's out in space too. And there's all these bases on Mars, and we're, communicating with ETs over there. And there's a whole, sub universe going on, a whole sub world, right? Underworld. And, these people get made into clones, time travel, all of these, everything, the whole kit and caboodle. And Randy Kramer is like just the biggest LARPer on the planet. And just when you start looking into psionics, you realize, oh, there's some interesting people involved with this back in the day before this became whatever. So it just worries me that these, but at the same time, the idea can be true. Just because someone attaches themselves to the idea doesn't necessarily mean the idea is bad, right? But it does worry me that a guy like this is attaching himself to psionics, and he's talking about psionics, right? And kind of where it came from just within the last like 5, 7, 10 years. So we'll just watch this 5 minutes. It's called Psionics Level 1. I'm just curious what, people think here. There he is.
So psionics is a pretty broad subject, which covers a lot of smaller groups of fundamentals that I would hope.
Real quick, Dan, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. If you need a bathroom break too, go for it while this plays.
Over the course of this course, will give you tools that enable you to put some of those fundamentals together into a larger construct of something that does a lot more than something very simple. But we're going to start with very basic fundamentals here. So psionics itself, what does that mean? It's a fundamental breakdown of two words, psi and onyx, which depending on how you want to translate those things, either means mind method or mind waves. You are approaching this from a purely analytical left brain perspective, you're doing it wrong. If you are approaching this from a purely right brain, intuitive, non-linear way of thinking, that is also wrong. But the most important thing to understand here is this is physics and math, and it is governed by a set of physical laws, which the first law of psionics, which is really the most important and begins us in a conversation about what psionics is that all thought produces psionic energy. That means every single thought that you have about yourself or about someone else or about something else, every anxiety, every worry, every fantasy, every joy, every happiness, every fear is creating psionic energy. Dream walking, that was a skill that came later in my life with development over time. So that if I choose to, I can walk from my dream state into another person's dream state and go see what they're doing in their dreams, which, also word of caution, be careful what you ask for. If you think that you want to go walking around in someone's subconscious and in their dream world because you want to help them or because you want to know something about them, or maybe you think for some reason that that's a good idea, just be forewarned. Going into people's psyches and subconscious, you may regret that you did so, just because you walk into somebody else's dream, it might be My Little Pony or it might be Freddy Krueger. So I want to emphasize, some people think that a person has one or more of these as a natural ability and none of the others, and that if you're not born with a natural ability to one of these things, then you're shit out of luck. And I want to emphasize really vehemently that that is 100% false. It's not even remotely accurate or true. What is completely accurate and true to say is that every single human being who walks the face of the earth could, not will, could learn to develop themselves in such a way that each and every one of these skills could be learned and developed. So there's no such thing as you're gifted or you're not gifted. That's horsepucky. And I want to make it very clear that there's no such thing. If you entered into the process diligently and practiced it and developed it every day, you would have, it's a muscle. Everyone has to develop the muscle by working on it, but is a daily diligent practice of hard focus, which you can see development in a relatively short amount of time. Said one of the most important things to remember about channeling is it's picking up a phone and you have no idea who's on the other end. And until you find out things about who's on the other end. You don't know whether to trust that person's input. And just because they're on the other end of the phone doesn't mean that they're more enlightened than you, more developed than you, in any way superior to you, or have better judgment than you. So just because you channeled someone or something doesn't mean that it's good. It just means that you picked up the phone and you're letting someone use your own speaker as the way to talk. So that's another one of those things that people need to use some really good discernment about how they develop that ability, because it can lead to what I call psionic dead ends.
Oh man, let's go back to. Let me pull this up again.
Psionic dead ends.
Covert space cowboy. Sorry, I've seen this guy's Gaia in. I remember when I first started Vetted, I watched videos of this guy talking about how he's a super soldier and genetically engineered to be this super soldier. I was like, but you have glasses on. They didn't give you 20/20 vision. You know what I mean? Like they missed that. Like I thought, dude, if you're the epitome of a super soldier, we got it wrong. No offense. I mean, if they said I'm the epitome of a super soldier, I'd say you got it wrong. I'm skinny. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that, this is not good. So I don't know. It worries me that people like this guy, you know, like the education about psionics and what's out there, right? And what people are going to learn about it moving forward. So like what to do, right? Like, does someone need to step up and, you know, present this in a different way? I don't know. Like, it's like this stuff is being presented without it being proven true yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like he's out teaching about it, and a lot of people are out educating about it without. I don't know. I just worry about that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I worry about it too, and it's finding the right forms where there is at least some like grounded investigation and scientific investigation. You know, I'd love to see more replication of the telepathy studies and learn how they were controlled. I don't know if people know how they delivered those studies, but I am curious. I know they were well controlled. I mean, that's how they describe it.
Sure.
But yeah, I think people are going to kind of use this negatively and use it for self-serving kind of means. And we just have to be very wary of that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
The part that is it's not proven yet, you know, when can we say it's proven? I mean, it's the degree of evidence. It's on the spectrum, so it's not proven or not proven, but when maybe until there's more significant evidence, and even when there's going to be some people that are going to exploit it.
Probably more so than now, to be honest. Yeah, I hear you. You know, and that's why I encourage people looking into this, wanting to study it, wanting to, right? Like, let's use the telepathy tapes as an example, right? They released this podcast and they were making, you know, doing these experiments or demonstrations, whatever you want to call them, and, you know, rent out an Airbnb, set up, try to control as much of it as they can so that there's no holes in it, right? Okay, let's take away mirrors, let's do this, you know, people can't see, right? And the idea is, for those that don't know, the telepathy tapes is basically insinuating that allegedly these non-verbal autistic children and some adults have telepathy, right? They have they can communicate, and so they try to control some of that. But with that said, they got funding to make a documentary and to do some of these experiments in labs and take it more serious. And I encourage all that. People were so mad about that. Well, what's the point? What are we doing? Why are people not allowed to study this? Look, you can't say where's the evidence, and then when people try to go create some or get some or whatever the term, you know,
it won't be the right study, or you know, they'll question the evidence.
Yeah.
You know, that's just like those are professional skeptics and debunkers. I mean, I'm excited to what you're going to be investigating, and to actually know someone who, you know, personally know, but and also kind of trust, because I know that you see things pretty objectively, and you're going to be, you know, embedding yourself in some of these environments and in the CE5 community, I believe. So I'm excited for that, and I'm kind of curious too, after seeing yesterday's show about the conference in the desert. What's it called?
Contact. in
Contact
the
in
desert.
the desert. Yeah. I think it's they're gonna have a demonstration there about
Yeah.
is it remote viewing or a psychic demonstration?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They're doing a few different things, live right there. You have Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell they're inviting a mom and her child to come perform basically telepathy tapes IRL in real life, right?
That's
Like
gonna be
do it
amazing.
on
Now
stage
I
in
know
front of
why the
everybody.
hotel was sold out like a month ago.
Yeah.
It's gonna
He
be a huge
commented back
turnout.
on that. There are rooms available. You just have to go through the Contact in the Desert website because they
Oh,
got
okay.
all they rented all the does that make sense? They took all the hotel rooms. So
Oh, that's
if you
great
call the
news. Because
hotel,
yeah, I
they're
went
gonna
through
say
my
it's booked.
Bonvoy app, but now I'll know. I'll just go through the website. That's great.
Yeah.
That was the reason I
Yeah.
wasn't gonna go because I like that. I've been to that hotel. It's a really nice place to stay.
Oh, nice. No, yeah, if you come, we'll get to meet in person, hang out, which is gonna be great.
Yeah,
I'm excited to meet people, talk about this, see some things, experience some things for myself. But I definitely encourage people to, you know, especially professionals who want to put money and investment behind looking into this and studying it and trying to produce some results. They believe in something, they're following through on it and want to present results. What people then do with the results is up to them, right? I can make my documentary and put it out, but I'm not trying to control what people believe after that. It's like,
sure.
but the idea that we would stifle people looking into it is it's just beyond me. I just
Yeah,
don't get that, or discouraging it, or so you're making a documentary. It's a grift now. Oh my god, you just can't win with some people.
yeah.
So I mean,
Trust me.
really,
Then if you want to make money, don't make documentaries.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's
That's not the
successful if
money
you break
making.
even. I've been
Yeah,
involved in a few things that I talk about, but yeah, it's not easy to make money. But I found like I've been kind of in my history poo-pooing a lot of these conferences, whether it's a MUFON conference or the Roswell one, and I'm like, I almost feel like it's sort of like, is it a bit of stigma? Like I remember when I was my early career, I wouldn't even go to some mental health conferences that might have been a little less traditional, and now this
sure,
seems very like established and important. And how open-minded am I if I don't start going to some of these conferences? I think it's really important for wherever your belief system is. If you're interested in the topic, whether you believe it
I
or
agree.
not, I think it's really important to connect with the community, see what the new research is coming out, see these speakers in person. Don't make armchair judgments that I'm sure you've caught yourself doing. I've caught myself doing.
100%.
I
100%.
really was actually inspired by you going, and I've been encouraging a lot of people to go to this one. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be really meaningful.
Yeah, I think so too, man. That's well said. Yeah, I mean, I want to see it for myself. I want to check this out, and just like I would do with anything, right? Why is this any different? If it's something that I find exciting, what's stopping me? At the end of the day. So yeah, absolutely.
And it seems
And
like a bit more. Maybe I'm getting the sense like a bit more organized or maybe professional than the McMinnville one. I don't know. Maybe I just saw the people going down the street in the cars, and you got, folks
sure,
waving. George Knapp waving from a backseat of a car. But I'm sure there's speakers and it's. But this is like it's in a very nice hotel. They've got a lot of professional speakers, people that I'm interested in hearing from. So it seems like kind of one of the pinnacle kind of events to go to, I think.
definitely, 100%. If you're gonna go to anyone, this is the one to go to
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the rubber's got to meet the road. Got to get out and look into this and what's going on. I'm super curious if some of this is real, right? Specifically, the CE5 contact, right? The contact with these others or entities, is that possible? And I do have a fear that I've spoken about many times on this channel, and that exists still. But I also thought,
What's the fear? Tell me about that.
just, I mean, if that's if I'm to assume that this is a real thing that you can communicate mentally with these entities, I mean, that's scary. I don't know what these entities are, their intentions, whatever. does opening a doorway into my mind, is that a good idea? Is it a two-way street?
Right.
Do they then now live in my brain from here on forth? Is it, I don't know. Nobody can answer those questions. So yeah, there's a little fear of what exactly
Yeah.
am I getting myself into, if this is real, because in my mind, I don't know if it's real. And like we said earlier, I don't know how important that is to my life if I know for certain if it's real or not, if that makes sense. Like just being curious about it and open-minded to it, and being around, talking about it, or being around people that have experienced and think it's real. And that's okay. I can go to these events and experience, the event itself, and not need to walk away having made a decision one way or the other. Me
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak because you mentioned, the term fear, and, fear is influenced by perceived threat or potentially real threat. Usually
sure.
it's a perceived threat. While I may have some negative thoughts about C5, I think I don't have them anymore. I don't think it's a cult. I apologize. I had a call come in. People can come and go to those things. Sure. Is he charging quite a lot for it? Yes, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would look at what is the impact on the people that are going. Are they negatively impact? Are they haunted?
You're talking about
by
Greer, right?
experiences? Yeah, I'm talking about his
got it.
C5.
Got it,
It doesn't seem like they're haunted by these experiences. It seems kind of a relatively positive experience. It's not like they're a victim of some mind control. They go back to their normal lives, and it's sort of like a retreat that they do. And there's lots of retreats out there. I think that's great. And if it's one that you find enough convincing evidence that, okay, we are actually collectively playing a role in inducing the presence or interaction of the phenomenon, which, thinking about it, from my experience in 2015, and I talked about it on Night Shift, it was like, a sighting is one thing. When you see a light in the sky far away, it can be powerful. But when something comes really close and goes away, comes back to 150 yards, that's an experience, it's an encounter, it's a relationship in many ways, because it's interacting with you. And even though all that happened, and I don't think they've had experiences like that there, but even though that happened, and I was in shock and somewhat traumatized back then, it's not lasting trauma. I mean, I occasionally think about it, but it's more eye-opening and mind expanding. So I really think you can only benefit from gathering new data from this experience.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree. I agree, but I guess there's always going to be a part of me that's a little fearful, just because I have responsibilities outside of my own curiosity. Does that make sense? My journey of curiosity. Like, I have real world responsibilities. So
I'd be worried if you don't come back and you need to start recruiting people, and then there's like, you're wearing really weird clothes and driving around in a Rolls Royce. And looking for plots of land up in Oregon.
Yeah. I have an accent out of nowhere, just some weird accent. Yeah,
totally.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I feel you. Absolutely. That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious to see where this is going to go, what the journey is. And
go with someone, maybe. It might help to have, you're going with, I'm assuming a film crew.
To contact?
No, to the CE5 when you do that.
Well, I don't want to talk about it too much, but we're going to try different methods in the documentary. So, I'll try it on my own, right? I'll try it with one teacher, like Mr. Miyagi style, Karate Kid, and then group setting, right? And then just going to something and just watching, just observing, not participate, just observing what's going on. So I think it's just a mix of different methods and protocols and exploring all of that, because to be honest, there's a lot of difference of opinion here. There are some people that think only certain people can do it. There's certain people that think everyone can do it. There's certain people that think it takes a long time to do it. There's certain people that think you can get it going watching one YouTube video. There's many different ways to look at this, and I want to explore that too. Why is there a difference here? Right.
I will say that probably the how you go in mentally is going to play a role, because, you know, I do hypnosis, or I used to do it a lot, and sure, there's a small percentage that can't be hypnotized, or it's very difficult to hypnotize them, but it's a small percentage. But if you go
I think I'm in that percentage.
Are you?
I've tried. They tried to one time, like a couple of times at, like, you know, those guys, the, like, you know, an event or somebody will hire like a hypnotist
type.
and they come up on stage, you know, they were like, you can't do it. I was like,
Yeah.
what? I wanted to.
They know pretty quick. They'll, like, you know,
Yeah.
pull up you know. Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to go in sort of, if not believing it, but like submitting to it, which might be the scary part.
Sure.
Because hypnosis is a real thing. A hypnotic trance is real. But a variable in the degree to which you're going into that trance is how much do you believe in it, and how much do you want to go into it?
I see.
So if
You need
really
to participate, it's a
you
dance.
almost have to, for it to be a good study, and which is sort of interesting. You know, it's like, okay, you want to step back and kind of be skeptical and objective, but then you're not going to get the
results.
valuable subjective data, because there's power in subjective and objective data. That's why I think going with one other person is almost a control.
Sure.
Is not doing it, because let's say, well, you know, because as Gary Nolan said, he's like, when he was at the ranch with Jake Barber, I saw something in the sky, and because they reported it, and someone had some medical complications, he gave some medical assistance, and I saw something in the sky, and that happened to coincide with, you know, them thinking about it, or whatever the activity was. And he said, but that's just correlational. I can't say there's no causality there. I can't say that, you know, the psionic individual brought on that UAP, but they both coexisted at the same time. So that means it's correlational, and that's why I really like the way he, you know, the way he communicates and approaches it, because he is still grounded despite his beliefs. He's grounded in the value of science and the methodology behind it. But
yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm actually thinking of checking it out. You know, well, see, it's pretty nearby, actually. For me, it's like 3 hours away.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm going to go into this as open-minded as I can to give it the benefit of the doubt, right? To give it its best shot at succeeding. That way there's no regret later of, well, you didn't really give it its best shot to succeed. So how can you really judge it? You know, I do want to give it its best, you know, the best shot I can, and clear my mind and go into these things as best I can, you know. And just leave
Patrick,
it there.
I will say, like, I say I'm going to go and check it out, but after hearing Greer say that he brought on the Phoenix Lights, I'm like, oh gosh, if you hadn't said that, I probably would have signed up. But you just went into crazy land.
Yeah,
Again.
That's so tough, right? Yeah, taking credit for the Phoenix Lights.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, maybe he was 4 years old and he brought on the DC, you know, UIPs.
Yeah, I mean, correct. It's like yeah, because it's like, okay, Greer, well, how do you know other people in the city weren't doing CE5 that night, and it was them, not you? I mean, if we're just to say that that's a real thing, right? A real ability, you know, it happened 3 hours later after you did it. I don't know. Again, it's a very it's an interesting thing, which is why I'm just going to get out and do this myself. Okay, let's forget the hubbub. Let's just see, you know, what's going on. Talk to other people who do it. What's their thing? You know, just kind of take it all in and leave everything on the table and let people take away from it whatever they want. But I think giving it its best shot to succeed is the fairest thing to do. Like you said, you know, with my intention and my mindset going into it, for sure. Good. Yeah, absolutely. So,
switching gears, and this is your show, but I'm curious what you thought about Arrow not mentioning about Jake Barber and you know, what might have been their motivations. Did they? I think they did actually have a meeting with him.
That's interesting. Like, where I guess my question would be, where would they have mentioned him? Like, where did they lack? Like, where is that negative at? Like, where is it where they had an opportunity to mention them and they didn't?
Yeah, and was it Kirkpatrick or was it Kozlowski? I don't know
Yeah.
timeline. Who would it have been?
Yeah, exactly. Which
Maybe
one?
someone
And
in your chat knows. I can't see your chat, but
sure.
because I feel like maybe it makes a difference, but I could see Kirkpatrick saying, well, we had a lot of people come, but we don't, but we're kind of not including people that had come with any sort of clear evidence, and any evidence that's circumstantial, or was just sort of an opinion, or that could be what he would say. Or my theory is that probably it's what they were transporting was classified, was a military exercise. It was on a military training range, so it's not unfathomable that they would be testing stuff out that crashes or doesn't crash and has to be retrieved.
Yeah.
Whether that is a non-human technology craft or an aerostat balloon, whatever it might be.
No, it's a great point. And also, like, we don't know what Jake and the team told them and what evidence they showed them, right? Like, specifically, like, for them to make a decision. How long was the meeting? Was it over Zoom? It was in person. Okay, was that the only one? Was there more? Was it, who did you talk to exactly? I mean, all of that, plays into, is
Where did the
Arrow
egg go after?
silencing them?
Did it go into a truck, or you dropped it off? Did you leave it there, or did someone pick it up?
Oh yeah,
That's a big question. The weight of it would be good. I mean, I think it's
sure.
under 5,000 pounds based on the helicopter. Why didn't you take a video of the 8 gone? I think that's how they call it.
Yeah,
A lot of questions, and just because I have a
sure.
lot of questions, it doesn't mean what he's saying is not true or doesn't have validity. I mean, there's some emotional weight behind it. I believe
Sure.
there's something there, but it's hard when I don't know. I want to be the interviewer.
Well, you want to complete the puzzle you have in your mind, and there's only little
Mhm.
bits, and you're like, no, I want to get the full scope. It has nothing to do with I don't believe this or I don't want to believe this, right?
Right.
Which I feel are two different things. And yeah, I think it's normal to ask these questions. I've had the same thoughts and questions, and um, I think it's healthy and it makes sense. If someone comes out with those kind of claims, what person in their right mind wouldn't ask those questions? In my opinion, like. If it's so profound, right? It's almost like you can't on one hand say this is the greatest discovery in mankind and the greatest thing for humanity and the greatest and the greatest and the ever, and then be like, oh, I should just believe that guy because he said it and he's credible. Wait a second, you just said it's the greatest thing on the back. Shouldn't we treat it like that? And there needs to be, right, whatever standards of proof or evidence in play
Yeah.
before I jump into the deep end of, yep, this is real. Now, what do we do about it? And I get different people are different journeys. So I understand how some people have reached that conclusion and they're in the, what do we do about it? I'm not asking anymore if this is a real phenomena.
Mhm.
Look, I get that, but we're all on different journeys. I'm just personally not there yet, in that,
Yeah, well,
in
as
that
Richard
camp.
Dillon, I think, spoke to it really well. I can't remember if it was in your interview or Clint's, but he was talking about, like, people are coming up with these predictions of, something big's going to happen in 2 weeks, or a year, or disclosure is going to happen in 2026, all that stuff. And he said,
Yeah.
if you're going to come up with a claim like that, you better have some evidence, because me and a lot of other people were very invested in this, and we take it very seriously. And really, I mean, even if you know something and you don't have evidence, be wary of sharing it. So I think it's really the responsibility
Yeah.
of that person to come up with some sound evidence. And I mean, Richard Dillon is really one of the most articulate, intelligent people in the field.
Yeah. I love Richard Dolan.
Topic
He's great.
is phenomenal. I mean, every time
Yeah.
I listen to it, I remember it used to be like really, I thought he was just like a UFO nut, and I didn't know he was such an amazing intellectual, so well read. He's got this sort of interdisciplinary approach where he sees things psychologically, culturally, politically. And yes, he's a full believer, but he's got the data. I mean, he's been researching this for 30 years. Um, And he's a
Yeah.
Rhodes Scholar, I think, too. But I've got his book right here. Actually, it's
The
underneath
USO's
this
one?
phone. Yeah, the USO one. It's under here to keep the phone a little higher.
Yeah. I love
But
it.
yeah.
Propping up. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You know, I respect people like Richard. He's put his life into this and he's put in a lot of work and effort, and absolutely worth listening to. I don't see any other argument against it. It's like Avi Loeb that, you know, I just spoke with Avi Loeb, and I don't get the hate against him. I mean, I just don't get some of the pushback, I guess, for people who've been in it a while. I get if you just, you know, reacting in real time, just coming into the community new, there's a little breathing room to kind of go all over the place because it's all new. But once you've been in it a minute, I just start to wonder, well, why are you here if you think it's all bullshit? You don't want it to be like, you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? Like, I just don't get, why are you
Right.
still here then? Why are you
Yeah,
still
go to
hanging out?
Michael Shermer's skeptical conference, or whatever. Go do something else. But it actually
Just
made
don't,
me
you know.
think. What you said just triggered something. A thought. Is it like maybe the government is worried about the schisms that could happen once, let's say, disclosure happens, just like post Christianity, 2000 years, there's just so many different branches of faith and churches, and no, you have to believe this, and no, that doesn't represent that, and that's what
Yeah.
they want, not this. And if we're seeing this much divide at this stage, could you imagine what it might be like when there's actually disclosure? Maybe disclosure won't bring us all together. We're going to be separated by factions and levels of belief, just as someone might be from sort of Pentecostal evangelical all the way to a Unitarian church in Vermont.
That's a great point. And I think we'd be divided by what response people think we should have to the news. Does that make sense? So some people are going to be like, no, we need to be treating this like a threat and we need to be that. And other people are like, no, we're just trying to make friends. And then everything in between. It's like the response to it is what I think will divide us, what we should do it with that information, right? Oh, the technology, laws, right? All of that. It's going to get all hairy and crazy. And I'm sure some people are going to start to ask, well, can we go to their homeland? Can we go visit them? Because that's what I want to know. Wait a
Right.
second. Can we, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Can
I
I
get
want to
on their
go.
dating app?
Yeah, exactly. I want to go see. Yeah. Have I been
I want to get
missing
myself
out?
some
You know?
alien.
Yeah, exactly. You know, what's going on over there? Like, I want to see
Yeah.
what's happening there. So yeah, I'm with you. It's a very interesting, it's just a very interesting topic journey. And I just hope we could all try to remain as respectful about it so that I just feel more gets done. It's more productive, positive. Um, because if we're constantly worried about, you know, everything else, right, then we're basically distracted in the wrong way, you know, because we're focused on just this other nonsense that shouldn't even be part of it.
Yeah, and the government, like I said, they are never going to give up this information, or at least easily. So it's going to require all of us to come together in a collective way. And I think it's probably better than we might think it is or see it is, because we might be like, I don't know, victims of more things. Or I know you are more public than I am, and with that comes more kind of fans, but more enemies too. I'm sure that's the case, but yeah. But I don't know. Maybe it's not as bad as we think. I mean, what are your thoughts on Lazander these days? I went to see him actually, and I want to tell you, he had a couple of slides that were really powerful, and I was going to try to post them. I was going to post a video on X, but it didn't come out very well. You couldn't hear his voice. But one of them, the symptoms that he described from interviewing experiences who were vets. Oh my God, I mean, it really matched up with the ones that I had in 2015. And I didn't have certain tests related to sort of radiation and things, but it is not uncommon for someone to have sun blindness after an encounter. I thought I was the only one in the world, literally, that had that symptom.
Wow.
And then also the feeling like you're sunburned, but you look in the mirror and you don't see it, but you feel like it's skin irritation. I told him about my sort of orbital pain. So after you get the opportunity to meet Lou, very briefly, and everyone's trying to get like one question in and get a photo and all that.
Sure.
So I can't remember if I mentioned about the pain, but anyway, the slide had lots of things that was just reassuring for me because, it just makes me feel less crazy.
I get it. Yeah, you feel like I'm not alone going through this. Yeah, I get it. 100%. Look, let's jump to some super chats that we'll have here, and let's go to the comments. Basically, let's jump in with the vetters, y'all. So if you have any super chats, throw them in now. I'm going to go through the ones that we have, and we'll just hit the comments here. All right, let's see here. This is from Paul Oglesby Jr. He actually put in 3 super chats, so I'm going to we'll go through all 3, Paul. He says psychic powers are a gift from God. You have to be spiritual to receive them. That's why the government tries to scare people with scary alien narratives. All right. That's interesting. Psychic powers are a gift from God. Yeah, I guess you have to believe a lot to believe that, right? You got to believe in this God or creator, what God? And I don't know. What do you think of that? That's why the government tries to scare people with scary alien narratives. I don't know. I mean, that's like asking, are humans scary? Well, a human can be scary. So maybe the same thing to be said with the aliens. Like maybe aliens on their own aren't scary, but an alien can be scary if he wanted to be aggressive and violent and, so I don't know if that's such a, like if that's being made up. I think that's always a part of the concept that the aliens could be a threat. I mean, until they're not a threat. I just don't see how that's not considered, but I don't know. What do you think? Psychic powers they get from God? Got to be spiritual to receive them?
I think psychic powers are a gift, or something that you can nurture, an ability maybe. Is it from God? I think if you see it as from God, yeah, it's from God. It's from whoever created us, whether that's nothing, God, some alien. So yeah, I actually know what he's referring to. Kind of God globally, like the mystery that created us.
Sure. All right, yeah. Okay, Paul again. There's no shortcuts to telepathic powers. You have to go through God and have pure intentions. All right, so that seems to be the through line here for Paul. So, which is interesting. So you can't learn these abilities. You either given to them, either God gives them to you or he doesn't. Is what I'm getting through this, which is interesting. Again, you can't. It's not like free throw shooting where you got to practice to get good at it,
Yeah,
because
it's
that's
possible. We don't know this,
also the
right?
theory. Yeah.
Nature, nurture, something that can be learned. I think that's hopefully what we're going to figure out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we clearly don't know the full power of our minds and our consciousness and everything. There's so many things we don't know. We don't even know what we don't know, right? Which is even, more eye-opening. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm open to it.
Well, you know the story of that. You've probably seen the documentary of that British kid who, when he was maybe 8, he had a seizure, and it impacted a part of his brain, and he suddenly could speak or learn 8, 9 languages. He's an amazing pianist. Within weeks, he could basically pick up, and he memorized thousands of decimal. I'm not a math guy, but pi. And he became like a savant, but at a very high level. So you'd think that maybe in the future we can manipulate that. It's like, okay, he was a victim of a seizure, but maybe we can induce the seizure. Not recommending any of this, but in the future, under controlled circumstances, we can, develop the mind through those kind of interventions.
Absolutely. Like just flipping a little switch that's in there. We don't need to do the seizure part, but we figured out a way to go flip the switch without having, a different cause for it. Absolutely.
Like we do it for psychopathology, less
Sure.
so now, but we do, there's electroconvulsive therapy. We do it to deaden the mind, or to deaden parts of the brain that are overactive. Maybe there's a way to enhance parts of the mind that are underactive or are not reachable. Meds can only go so far. I'm sure in the future there'll be more sophisticated ways to do that.
Yeah, 100%. I think any talent, or learning a language, playing, an instrument, a skill, if you will, is all just information that you then execute right through yourself out, right? So that's all it is. So just like in the Matrix, where they connect Neo to the thing and he just opens his eyes like, I know karate, right? Like,
Yeah.
I essentially think maybe that is possible in our brains to flip some switch and then people can learn things just instantly because they can retain information. It's all about information, right? Retaining information and then accessing that information is really the key as well, right? Being able to access the information quickly, and why not? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, we're
But
seeing
is
it right
that
now with AI,
telepathy?
with ChatGPT and AI. We're able to
Sure,
access information a lot faster and be more productive. I mean,
sure.
could you imagine how much easier it would have been for us in high school instead of that yellow Cliff Notes? That was our cheating, was Cliff Notes. Do you remember those?
Of course.
Yeah, and then college actually having to
Absolutely.
write a paper and
The
someone would
yellow
get caught
books.
for
Those,
paying.
yeah,
Yeah.
those days are gone, right?
Oh
That's
yeah.
a whole new. I can't imagine being a teacher and trying to, make sure your students didn't use AI to write their shit or do their shit or the internet. Yeah. Oh my God.
Every teacher's putting all those papers, maybe not college, but in high schools, they're putting it through software to find out.
That's good. Yeah, absolutely. I don't blame him. Which is interesting. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's what fascinates me about the idea of psionics. If we take out the CE5 part, right?
Mhm.
And it's just about, we're talking now about the power of our own minds. Well, I know we all have minds. Like, that's proven to me, right? We all have brains. We all have. So that's a proven thing that can be expanded on. That's what makes it very appetizing to me, right? I guess it's closer to a reality I'm familiar with enough for me to want to check it out. Where we start to get into contact with other entities, that's like way down the road for me for this other, reality, right? That could be real. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying the idea of telepathy, telekinesis, these are abilities that feel closer to reality, because again, it's just using our minds that we do have, right? So yeah, I'm all about checking it out. All right, Paul Oglesby again. Philip K. Dick had a future memory of his own death and predicted it perfectly on record, wrote Adjustment Bureau, the movie Tim Taylor claims is real. He didn't write Adjustment Bureau, the movie. They based that movie off a short story that he wrote, which is, different. But I don't know anything about him predicting his own future death and perfectly on the record. I've never heard that before. Have you ever heard that about Philip K. Dick?
No.
Yeah, that's a new one for me. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know. Like, what does that mean? Again, I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if you could have a future memory of your own death and then that's exactly what happens, because I think once you find out that information, you'll live your life differently. So it may not happen that way, but maybe that was the whole point all along. That's how you die on that day, is because you found out about it and you lived your life differently, and it did lead to that moment. So that's also interesting. It's the grandfather paradox, but differently, like twisted, right? No, that stuff's so mind-boggling. Honestly, my brain can't handle it.
A rabbit hole.
Right? Yeah, it's a rabbit hole for sure. Daniel says, "Pump up the like button, friends. Much love, Dr. Danny Rock. Happy Psionics month," or whatever it is. Okay, Daniel, thank you, man. Yeah. FPUG, can hypnosis facilitate psionics? Patrick and Dr. Dan, have either of you ever been hypnotized? Well, let's start with the first question. Can hypnosis facilitate psionics? That's an interesting question. What do you think? You can answer that better than me, for sure.
So I've never read a study on that. I don't think that it exists, but it might be out there. But no, there's no scientific evidence, at least, that can happen, that it can facilitate psychic ability. That being said, hypnosis can develop one's consciousness to be more aware of emotion, the emotion of one's own emotion, the emotions of others. It increases awareness, perception, and it's not long term. They're typically temporary. It's sort of like like opening a doorway, and you need to continue to sort of work in that space and learn to communicate and share emotion. But it can at least decrease anxiety, make you more receptive to that with certain scripts and metaphors that I would use for that. But never, I'm just think the closest that it will get to something like psionic, I mean, never get close to that, but it might be reading just the nonverbal cues of others, or when you walk into a room and you just feel, let's say, your spouse or your mom or whoever it is, she seems fine, but you just feel this weight on you.
Yeah.
So it's tapping into that, and that's sort of kind of psychic in a way, right? I mean, she's not saying anything or showing anything, but emotionally you're feeling it, and you can develop that definitely.
Oh, that's good. All right. This did bring up two questions that I want to ask you, but I want to get to this other one first. Have either of you ever been hypnotized? I said no earlier, I can't do it, but have you personally been hypnotized?
Yeah, I was hypnotized. I went to a hypnotherapist when I was first time 15 for anxiety and panic attacks. It didn't work particularly well. The person who was doing it was sort of in training, but even so, I remember being.
You got a student driver. You got
to. Yeah. And he would say things like, he would just mess up too many times along the way, where it's like, okay, I'm going, I feel like I'm floating, and then suddenly he'd be like, say something that was just clearly wrong.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And then he'd bring you back down, but yes, I have. And when I was hypnotized, for me, I know when I'm in a trance is that I will feel like I'm levitating, and I'll be on a 45-degree degree axle kind of thing. I'll be, and it might not full levitation, but you're feeling like I'm usually sitting in a chair or lying down, because you can do self-hypnosis, and I'll feel really light, and I'll feel like my body is tilting, even though it's physically not. And that's kind of when I know I'm under.
Okay, all right on. All right, the two questions that I have that this made me think of is, one, can someone be hypnotized too much, like a drug, like just too much? And two, what do you think about like when people get hypnotized for like regression, like to learn about past memories, and especially with abductions and stuff? So I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I've always been pretty skeptical on the use of hypnosis to bring about regressed memory and experiences and stuff like that. But I also was trained by someone that didn't really believe in that, so I've got to be aware of that kind of bias. I would look into the research, and I could. I'm probably going to, because I'm interested in now. So there could be some validity there, but one needs to be very careful, because there is evidence that during the 90s, in the sort of New Age movement, a lot of people saw hypnosis, and a lot of people experienced traumas that were embedded, that didn't exist, either sexual assault or some kind of trauma that actually did not exist. And they've come out later, and it's very easy to do that, because what hypnosis can do is that someone will be under, and they think they're recounting a real event, but it's actually an event from a dream that they had, and it is tapping into that. And that actually might be some evidence of like how it can help with memory regression, but it could be a memory from a dream, so it might not be. And then we have memories of things that aren't real. We kind of sometimes reinvent the past, because we want to remember the things the way we want to, or the way we can tolerate.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers it, but that's the extent to which I know about it.
I mean, do you recommend, let's just, would you recommend someone use that to try to learn about maybe an abduction experience they had? And then how much validity do you think they should give that new knowledge?
It's not going to be popular, I'm going to say, to anyone in the community, or probably any of your audience, but no, I'm the opposite end of that. I think that if you've been abducted, you're going to remember it. Like, trauma can change time in the sense something will feel a lot longer. Like there's going to be time dilation with anything that's traumatic. I experienced that at some level with my 2015 encounter. But you know, if you've had a very traumatic experience in Afghanistan or Ukraine, you know, you're going to remember it. You're not going to just forget it all. There might be a few parts of it you might not, you know, not you might not remember. You just are repressing. You don't want to. You know that's
You don't
there.
want to
You're just
remember.
not touching it because it's going to bring
Yeah.
on a lot of emotion. And
Sure.
most people, though, are conscious of that. It's not. I think it's a bit of a myth. There's all these sort of regressed memories that you know that I buried in some drawer, and I need hypnosis to bring them out. I think that's just more of a myth, and it's not popular, but that's just from my experience. So just be really wary because you go to a hypnotherapist and you are in a vulnerable state. It's temporary. It's not doesn't like obviously last forever. With a professional, they're going to take you out of that state. But if you look at Charles Manson, who used hypnosis actually to and drugs, which the combination of those hypnosis and drugs can absolutely have major mind control, where he got several women, mostly women, one guy to kill. I don't know how many people killed, right? Sharon Tate and many others.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these people that like say to this day, I knew it was wrong. I didn't want to do it, but I could not stop my mind saying I had to do it because Charlie told me.
Wow.
So he found the right psychedelic and the right hypnosis, which is scary because you know the government, well, they have tried this. And actually, Charles mentioned, I think he was a MK Ultra subject, or there's some connection there.
Sure.
But anyway, there's a great documentary out on Netflix right now on that. Directed, produced by Errol Morris, who is one of the greatest documentary filmmakers.
Yeah, you're right. No, that's so interesting what you said.
For generally
so-
hypnosis, I want people to know, like it's safe and it's mostly guided meditation. It's a lot of guided imagery. It's highly focused attention. And I have all these hypnosis scripts of just helping people to kind of get in a very calm state, that I give them the choice of going into a deeper trance if they feel comfortable. So I use a sort of non-directive type of hypnosis. I can do rapid induction, where you do a few quick moves that will work on 80% of the population and put them in a trance pretty quick. But there's no reason for me to do that in a therapeutic kind of space, where it's all about, it's not impressing, it's like healing and empowering and finding their spiritual center kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you, so can people be over hypnotized, like they do it too much? Is that a thing or no? Or you ever heard that before?
No, I haven't heard of that before. Is it possible? I don't know, but it's a good question. I don't think, do people over rely on it? No, I don't know. Good question,
That's
but I don't know the
interesting.
answer.
Yeah. I'd be curious if like people get addicted to it, like just showing up at the doctors everywhere. Hypnotize me. And they're like, okay, that's too much. You calm down. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, almost anything can be too much. Sure. Yeah, exactly. You just get like, oh, this helped me. Let me keep doing it. But then it loses its effect because, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
No, that's very
tell
interesting.
you, in 2005, was it 5, maybe 3, I was working to school and a kid came in and he had Tourette's, and I used hypnosis. Didn't know if it would help. I was more doing it for his anxiety. And I cured his Tourette's for several days. And it never been done before. And I mean, I was shocked. Parents were like crying, I mean, he had, he was swearing and had these jerky movements that were controlling, 10 years of his life. And suddenly they meet Dr. Dan for 10 minutes and he performs some magic. It's gone. Yeah. So it's gone, but then it came back. And now they actually show that there is some benefits of hypnosis.
On a scheduled basis.
Yeah, scheduled basis. It's a real nascent stage for research. Nicotine has a benefit actually for Tourette's. There's a new research on that, but I'm not an expert in that area, so I'm not going to speak.
Sure. No, for sure. No, that's very fascinating. I've definitely thought about quitting smoking with hypnosis because I'm like, I can't, God, it's so hard. I can't do it. I've tried, I know I've quit a couple times in my life. I always end up picking it back up, eventually. And I'm like, someone needs to just do it for me. I know there's a switch maybe in my head. Just flip that switch, please, and just turn it off. I don't want to do this anymore. But then there's a part of me that goes, this is going to be a very strange opinion. Please don't hate me.
Okay.
Smoking's kind of cool. Okay. I grew up in a different time where like I would look back in movies and the guy with the cigarette and the raspy voice and the dark lighting at the bar, and it's just very kind of like, that guy's cool, man. That guy is cool.
The
There's
commercials
something
worked for you, Patrick.
they got me, bro. They got me. It's like,
well, do you know when I started smoking again?
thing, I
After
don't know.
watching Mad Men. I watched every season of Mad
Totally.
Men. I
My
took it
God.
up and I was like, I want to be as cool as that dude.
Yeah. Oh shit. That's
And
a
I
real
and I
thing.
went from like 0 to like pack and a half of American Spirits for 12 years of my life. I quit 8-9 months ago, but I've got this,
Congrats. Yeah.
but which is still bad. But hypnosis actually, it's very effective for that. You've got to find a good one. So I would say 10% of hypnotherapists actually, they're experts. They've got the script down. They're so confident with how they do it. If they take you in there and they take you through some progressive muscle relaxation and do some guided imagery, and there's no fixed script, they don't know how to do it. My opinion.
No, that's interesting. Those are obviously I wouldn't have ever thought of any of that. But let me ask you this, like,
and I'm not endorsing cigarettes are cool, and everything I say is I'm not,
of course,
therapeutic advice. I should give that little disclaimer.
Yeah, of course. No, I said that cigarettes are cool, guys. You guys can blame me.
Yeah, I didn't say that, right?
Yeah, I said that. They're not, cancer they give you is not cool. I'm just saying that something about holding this thing and the smoke coming out. Maybe they just need a new, whatever.
Well, go to Europe, go to Australia, and look on the packs. You won't think it's cool anymore.
Trust me, I'm moving to Europe. Like I know, and I lived there before.
Did they do that in Spain or wherever you go?
Yeah, they do it everywhere but America, man. If you go to Mexico, I lived, Mexico does the same thing. They put horrific pictures on them, for sure.
I'm gonna get you a cigarette. Getting you a cigarette case then.
It doesn't, yeah.
Nice cigarette case.
Right. Yeah. I just what was I gonna ask? Oh, so is there any benefit for me in this documentary, in this journey that I'm going to take right into psionics, for me to be hypnotized for some reason, for something, or maybe to make myself more open to it, or something? Could there be a benefit to me doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there can be a benefit for everyone to have hypnosis in some ways. But first, I'll answer that because it really does help with relaxation, and really what it is you're learning to kind of manage your physiology and learn. It's meditation, really. It's just you've got an outside guide, like a non-drug related shaman who's gonna kind of help guide you to find that place. Because you got to be really good to do self-hypnosis and not have those thoughts jump in. But yeah, I think it certainly could be. I mean, you say you can't be hypnotized. I wouldn't see it as you're either hypnotized or not. It's on a spectrum of the degree to which you're going to feel really relaxed, and from more stressed to being in a deep trance. There's lots of wonderful spaces to be along the way. Kind of like biofeedback is really useful. It's like learning to regulate your heart rate through your thoughts, but you've got to be able to see the heart rate change based on a screen to be able to kind of practice that and regulate it. So yeah, I think there's some help there.
Could be some benefit.
And maybe 8 weeks in a psychiatric hospital, that'll help too.
Oh, my wife would love
Just
that.
kidding. Just kidding.
She probably thinks I should already go to one,
Yeah, no, I know. She told me about that. She wanted a referral. I said I can't.
Yeah, I can't get. Oh shit, that's funny. Well, look, let's kind of wrap up here. We've been going for a couple hours. Any last, kind of thoughts here before we wrap it up? What do you think?
No, I don't. I'm just really excited to be able to be here to talk and contribute in any way I can on X, which is primarily where I am. I have no agenda. I'm not doing it to gain mass followers or make money. Obviously, it's for me. It's a hobby. I love finding ways to connect people. I've learned a lot. There's times where I posted something and someone's given me some feedback on it, and I'm like, God, yeah, that was kind of either self-serving, or I was seeing that really in a closed-minded way, or it was could be perceived as critical. And because there is some positive feedback you'll actually get, and group accountability, and it happened recently, actually a week ago. Someone that's quite known, low level known, but DM me and said, I don't think you kind of mean to write that post, and I took it down. I was like, yeah, why did I actually attach an image of that was unnecessary, And so anyways, my sort of tagline says, it's like I want to try to expand my mind and facilitate the expansion of others people's mind and intellectual and emotional journey. I mean, I want what everyone wants, is like we want to feel we want to love and be loved, we want to feel appreciated, we want to feel needed, we want to feel like we can contribute, we want to feel worthwhile. And if there's any role I can play in that, I do that in my job as best as I can, and we do it all in our own lives with the people we know and love. But if I can serve any role in any capacity related to any of those things in the UFO community, I would be very happy to do that. That would give me immense joy.
Love that. Well, guys, I'll put a link to. Actually, I think I already have it down there for Dan's Twitter account, so you can find it down in the description there below if you want to go follow him on Twitter. And we've done a couple interviews. Maybe I should put those links down too. You've been on the show a couple times, which were great. And yeah, man, this was a great conversation. I love just talking about this stuff and kind of just open dialogue and spitballing and,
Yeah, me too.
Seeing where people are with things. And
you got such a great audience. So what I also love to do after
Yeah.
every show I see, I go down, and engage either just personally, intellectually with the questions, or I'll respond to, because you've got a really intellectually curious following. And yeah, it really feels like a good community. And of course, there's the few that are negative, but the majority is just a really good community of interested people that value your show and want to learn together.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. I agree. And there's a link to our Discord. Go join that. It's free to join, y'all. And today is our 1-year anniversary on the Discord. So, which is great, right? That's 1 year of like-minded people. Again, I said earlier before you jumped on the stream, the Discord like open mic chats that we have in there are honestly, there's some of the best. They are the best conversations I've had on the topic. Period, is in there with other vetters, other people, just all trying to figure this thing out together. All different range of beliefs. People who think it's all bullshit to I'm full blown into this thing. You know what I mean? I've been to Planet Xenu. We got everything in between. It's and all just trying to figure this out. And even if the one thing I've learned is, even if people have had an experience, even like yourself, you still, you know what I mean? Like, people are like, I don't know what's going on. I don't have all the answers just because I've experienced something. I'm equally in this journey, just like you, who haven't experienced anything. I'm trying to figure this out as well. I think that's a misconception too. People think, oh, they've had an experience, they got all the answers, or they think they have all the answer. They know. It's like, no, we're all trying to figure out what's going on here.
And my sense with the Discord, I have that on my phone. I don't go into it too much because I can get kind of pulled into it, because it's very entertaining and fun too. But I like vetted, just the term, because it implies that you're vetting things at some level, and then you're presenting information for others to vet. But in your community, which is the best part of it, is people are vetting themselves, and that's what we all got to do, because we're not we're not all perfect, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to believe one thing one day and not another. And it's just really being open and fluid to changing thoughts, changing opinions based on new data, and being supportive of other people going through that periods of known and unknown, certainty and indecision, and being just radically accepting as best you can.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I always say, I'll leave it on this thought. Don't judge someone based on their belief of aliens and UFOs. That's my opinion. Like whatever if they believe or don't believe, that shouldn't be a judgment on their character or integrity in any way, shape, or form. I hope not. This was awesome, Dr. Dan. Thank you again, man, for taking the time.
Welcome.
And for us having this conversation. And thank you to y'all for watching and hanging out with us, and all the great questions y'all put in and all the great comments. So thank y'all so much. Again, find the link for Dr. Dan's Twitter down below. Go give him a follow, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you, Vetters. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.